Talk 1240.
The long arm of the law is now extending into the non-physical world, extending into the world of the computer, the world of the internet. But I mean, technically, yeah, it's kind of been there forever, since the inception of the thing. After all, the internet was kind of invented by a bunch of government spooks and some folks in universities, so you could always argue that one and probably be right. Now, the World Wide Web is the responsibility of Sir Tim Berners-Lee. God bless him. And it's a whole nother animal. But the internet in and of itself is kind of a government creation, and the enforcement of laws on the internet is also a government responsibility from the view of the government. Well, the FBI, of course, here in the States tends to be the agency which would enforce any sort of law that's been broken on the internet, because it's usually interstate, right? Like if I'm breaking a law on the internet, chances are it's an interstate crime because I accessed a server that doesn't exist here in Tennessee or Georgia where my house is. That tends to be the case. So either the Marshal Service or the FBI would be the one investigating. Of course, the Marshals will arrest you, and then the FBI would investigate. Of course, it's usually how it goes. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Be sure to get us on the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone. That's TuneIn Radio on your smartphone. You can listen to us streaming live there on the internet whenever you want. That's Hot News Talk Radio on the TuneIn Radio app. There's also new possible gun legislation that's being looked at. The president's backing smart gun technology in a new policy blueprint. And this is not a new technology. In fact, it's been around since the late 90s, I believe. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit later. Now, right now, the FBI has apparently been granted new powers, new-ish powers, thanks to the Supreme Court, the geniuses in the Supreme Court. You see, for some reason, the Supreme Court doesn't really do what it's supposed to do originally. I mean, it does that and a lot more, I guess is what I should say. The Supreme Court, instead of just handling differences between different states, now it seems like the Supreme Court is actually creating law too, which doesn't really make any sense, and it kind of violates all sense of separation of powers, but it's not like anyone in government cares these days anyway. So the Supreme Court, according to Extreme Tech, has passed a proposed change to Rule 41 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, one of the main bodies of law that governs the powers and behavior of the FBI, which you've probably never heard of, the Rules of Criminal Procedure, because if you're not in the FBI, why would you ever need to know about it? Previously, Rule 41 said that a judge may only hand out a search warrant to be issued within the district which they represent. Makes sense. But how do you work within that system when you're tracking someone whose location has been technologically obscured? The new version of Rule 41, which is approved on Thursday, removes the requirement in cases where the suspect's location cannot be realistically obtained. In practice, according to Extreme Tech, this means that the FBI can ask for and receive warrants to hack suspects anywhere in the world. Now, where does the FBI claim jurisdiction to anywhere in the world? Generally speaking, and in the past anyway, it used to be set up so that if there was ever a dispute between one country's law enforcement agencies and a suspect in another country, you'd work with that country's law enforcement agencies. But now, for some reason, the FBI and the U.S. in general is the world police. So I guess we'll just get anybody we want because, you know, the long arm of the law and the U.S. is the best and yada, yada. Never mind not sovereign countries or anything like that. You know, if this happened to us, we'd be all in an uproar. The whole basis of a sovereign country is the basis of modern republicanism anyway, right? It's a sovereign country, you got to secure the borders and whatnot, but somehow it's okay when we violate that principle in other countries because it doesn't really apply to them. We're better. It's kind of like how once you leave the country, your rights just don't apply anymore. Like constitutional rights are somehow granted from an entity other than the highest one, right? Like the Constitution is the entity which grants you rights somehow, right? Like that tends to be the theory. You know, if you talk about, and this is something that's bugged me too. If you talk about rights, we talk about, well, we need to give such and such their rights. Oh, we need to, like animal rights as an example, just using that as an example. We talk about animal rights and all that jazz. Well, where do the animals get the rights from? And we talk, well, we need to grant animals their rights. Well, where do they come from? If rights are so arbitrary that a human can grant them, why even have them? Because humans are really kind of bad at everything. So why then would we allow humans to grant other entities rights? It doesn't make any sense. And why would we allow humans to determine what rights another human has? Again, No sense made there whatsoever. The rights derived from the Constitution are, of course, derived from a biblical understanding of law, and of course British common law too, which derives from, again, a biblical understanding of law. The FBI, of course, is trotting all over that because it's the FBI. It's what they do. It's like their job to stamp on the Constitution. So this comes in the wake of a number of legal decisions against the FBI stemming from the jurisdictional issue presented by the former version of Rule 41. Congress may intervene to stop this rule change, but why would they? Because this gives government more power. So why would Congress want to work outside of their own interests? This is like a pay raise that they vote against. No sense made there whatsoever. U.S. Congress probably is not going to be intervening. The Supreme Court also changed Rules 4 and 45 in the same decision, but they're not considered as centrally important to the FBI's central powers. So what this is all referring to, and what this is all in a response to, is the whole idea of Tor networks and the whole idea of proxies, where you can obfuscate, I love that word, you can obfuscate your identity and hide who you are. That's what that means. You can hide who you are and access websites or non-website websites, deep websites that are otherwise would be inaccessible to a normal person using this proxy. So you hide your identity by merit of using Tor. Now, that's not in and of itself a bad thing. Using Tor is not a bad thing. Lots of journalists use it so they're not tracked by their respective governments in whatever place they live in, which has a repressive regime, kind of like the UK. So it's not in and of itself a bad thing. Now, there's no doubt that Tor is used for illegal purposes, but then again, so is the internet at large. It's like the argument against Bitcoin is, well, people use it to deal drugs. Yeah, people use the US dollar to deal drugs all the time, and we're not trying to ban that. It's just a threat to Federal Reserve. So until now, it's been very difficult to get authorization directly to hack anonymous users of the Tor network and other anonymity regimes. That's a tough one. Anonymity regimes. Try saying that 5 times fast. In many cases, the FBI has had to confirm a user's rough location before it could ask the appropriate judge for a warrant to conduct further directed attacks against a known criminal personality. That takes time, and in some extreme cases may simply be impossible. The Supreme Court decision makes it so that in cases where the location of a target computer has been concealed through technological means, jurisdiction essentially does not apply at the investigatory phase, which is really weird. And I've seen this on Tor too. They're talking about seizing websites sometimes. I've actually seen that happen. Mega Upload, way back in the mid-2000s, about 10 years ago, Mega Upload was a really good file hosting site, kind of like Dropbox or Google Drive is now, except it wasn't as sophisticated as those things because, again, we're talking about 10 years ago. So Mega Upload was really interesting, and it was really cool. And lots of people hosted files on Mega Upload. I remember there used to be movies on Mega Upload. There used to be music on Mega Upload. And obviously that kind of causes a copyright problem. My view tends to be if it's on the internet, it's free for everybody because it's on the internet. People are going to get it without paying because it's just how it is. Maybe you should pay morally, but in practice, it's basically open to everybody. There's no such thing as an impenetrable paywall. Like Forbes magazine has a paywall. Technically, you're supposed to pay money to get past Forbes's paywall. But if you just use ad block and a little bit of script adjustment in Firefox or Chrome, you can get past it and not pay for it. So it's Times Free Press is a similar thing. So it doesn't make any sense. Again, it's just easily passable, except for by someone who is not knowledgeable of that you can do it, I guess. But there's no such thing as an impenetrable paywall anyway. So Mega Upload got in a bunch of hot water with the feds, particularly the DMCA violations, which they alleged occurred. And also there was an issue with the RIAA and the MPAA, which is the Motion Picture Association of America, and the Recording Industry Association of America, which we're very familiar with in the radio industry. Mega Upload got in a bunch of trouble with those two things because of, again, pirated movies on Mega Upload. So Mega Upload got shut down, despite the fact that Kim.com, the guy who owns it, and yes, that's his real new legal name, Kim.com, despite the fact that he said that he followed all the proper procedures with DMCA. And that's possibly true. There's no way to not prove that he didn't, So it got shut down. Basically what happens is the FBI will seize a website and freeze it for all of eternity until a judge says they have to stop. So what you'll see is this little warning. And this is for deep websites, but it applies to normal ones too. It says here, this hidden site has been seized as part of a joint law enforcement operation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, and European law enforcement agencies acting through Europol and Eurojust. Wow. So the government can now seize, and has been able to for a long time, seize websites and put up this nice little splash page warning you not to do illegal stuff on the internet, because that's really going to stop you. Yeah, right. Well, it gets better, though. Europe has a similar thing going on now called Eurocops. So they've chosen the most fruity name possible for their police, Eurocops. In Europe, these new Eurocops have new Euro jurisdictions, and we should all be very glad that we don't live in the European Union. Europe's police agency, Europol, has been given enhanced cyber powers to track down terrorists and other criminals. This new governance rules were approved by the European Parliament Civil Liberties Committee on Thursday by a massive majority. MEPs claim that the new powers come with strong data protection safeguards and democratic oversight. Get used to that whole language about, that we've got an oversight committee that makes sure everything goes right and yada yada. We don't have that here in the United States, by the way. We actually have it a little bit worse, because when it comes to surveillance, we have the FISA courts, which are secret. You can't look at the minutes of FISA courts. You can't look at the records for the FISA court. And guess who's on the chair for that? Dianne Feinstein, very noted anti-gun and anti-privacy advocate, whether she'll admit it or not. That's what she is. Nobody likes Dianne Feinstein except for really hardcore either anti-gunners, which you've a right to be, hardcore anti-gunners, or hardcore Democrats. These are two classes of people I really tend to not like. Yeah. So Dianne Feinstein is arguing against privacy, and you have people who are constantly being sent to FISA court, and we basically never hear about it in the public because it's not supposed to be public knowledge. It's a bizarre thing. It's like in Chicago, they've got the black sites. Think of it as a non-physical manifestation of that. Let's talk about smart guns for a minute, though. Smart guns are a concept that have been around for a long time, actually. About the late 90s, I think, is when smart guns really started to be looked at. Right about the time Columbine happened, actually. I think it was sort of a backlash for the Columbine shooting. If you remember that, back in 1999, the two guys, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, went to their high school and shot a lot of people, and it was a horrible tragedy. And we've learned from that how school shootings tend to work, because it's been the example for school shootings ever since. And as a result of that, there were a few gun bans passed. Of course, Dianne Feinstein being at the forefront of that, the Brady campaign. Remember, James Brady was the President Reagan's, I believe, press secretary, and he was shot and paralyzed during the Reagan assassination attempt. That's where the Brady campaign comes from. So they've been campaigning for a smart gun. Now, the idea of a smart gun is in and of itself not a bad idea if it was just a normal consumer product and you weren't being made to use it. If the smart gun was just something that companies sold, it'd be fine. As a concept, it's fine. And as a product, it's fine. I'll explain. So the smart gun idea is you can't use your gun unless you're the person who's meant to use that gun. It's a very sort of James Bond idea. In fact, they used that idea in, I think it was Skyfall, I think. So in the idea of the smart gun, only you can use it, and it uses an RFID chip to identify you. It's kind of like a key fob to enter keyless entry for your car. Same sort of thing, or keyless starting for your car. You have the push to start on your car, and you have to have a key fob and a certain amount of distance from your car. It's the same idea, except applied to a handgun in this particular case. And the problem with this is, one, you need a power source, and that's a problem. I don't want to keep sticking AA batteries into my gun. Two, this is just another thing to go wrong. And when we're talking about firearms and protecting yourself, you want as few gates, we'll say, between you and a bullet coming out of the gun. You want some, but you don't want that many. For me, even a safety is almost too much, because again, that's another thing that I'll forget to turn off, because I have a rifle that I practice with a lot, actually, and I will constantly forget that I have the safety on. I'll be aimed down range, ready to pull the trigger. You pull the trigger and it's stiff, and you realize I've got the safety on. You flip the safety down, then you pull the trigger. Now, when you're target shooting, that's just a minor inconvenience, and it's not even a big deal. But if we're talking about split-second reaction times, that is a very big deal. Now, granted, in warfare, probably you're not going to have your safety on, But if we're walking down the street and I have a concealed carry weapons permit, say, and someone tries to mug me and I whip out my piece and it's unsafe, I could be stabbed between the time I try to flip the safety switch and pull the trigger, because that's a split second reaction time that you need. And fights usually only last about less than 10 seconds. So that's a huge amount of time. A split second is a huge amount of time. That's the time between a knife going in between your ribs and you trying to fiddle around with the switch on your gun. So smart gun ideas, smart gun technologies seem less safe to me than a regular old gun that's been around since the mid 1800s, the idea of a repeating arm. It just seems like, why would we try to fix something that isn't broken? Well, the answer is, of course, control. On Friday, according to, get my source here, recode.net. On Friday, according to recode.net, the Obama administration unfurled its progress report on the gun control policy the president first presented in January. A key pillar of that report is smart gun technology. For the first time, the administration is presenting guidelines for federal, state, and local law enforcement to define smart guns, an umbrella term for tech enabling only authorized people to shoot weapons to curb violence. The White House said that the Department of Defense will begin testing this technology and implement a cash prize for manufacturers. Additionally, the federal government and Department of Justice will move to catalyze the production of guns with this safety technology. You can read a full White House report if you go to whitehouse.gov/whatever and read the whole thing. But notice here, the feds are paying for this to some degree. Whether we like it or not, our tax dollars are being funneled into making guns less accessible for the average person. This could potentially ruin the whole idea, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this could potentially ruin the whole idea of pawning your gun and selling it to someone else in a private sale, or selling your gun to a gun store and that gun store selling it to someone else. I'm sure there's some way to reprogram the watch you have to wear to use the gun, but overall, it seems like there's just too many things to go wrong. There's a lot that can go wrong with this whole idea. And why would I want to put my life in danger because of a few little things that can go wrong that could have easily been avoided if I just had a 1960s model Star 1911? It doesn't make any sense. There's no problem that America's innovators cannot solve, says Valerie Jarrett. There we go. A senior Obama. Oh, this is hard to say. A senior Obama advisor. Always had trouble with President Obama's name for some reason. That's what she wrote in the report. And we are confident that by focusing the private sector's attention on smart gun technology, we will unlock life-saving innovations. Well, they're focusing the private sector's attention by artificially making it go there, because otherwise manufacturers don't care at all about smart gun technology. It's an artificial idea that's been implanted by the government yet again. Or by, to be fair, it could be by campaigns. It could be by lobbyists. It doesn't have to be by government. But either way, it's sort of an artificial thing. Smart gun tech has some prominent Silicon Valley backers, including well-known angel investor Ron Conway, founder of Smart Tech Challenges Foundation. He praised the administration report in an email, saying that smart guns meet the highest standards of both safety and operability and can help prevent unintentional shootings and realize safer communities. So what's the idea here? Will we all be carrying guns, but they'll all be smart guns? Or will only licensed people be carrying guns and they'll all be smart guns? Or what's the end goal here? The plan also has prominent detractors too, notably, and of course, as they point out, unsurprisingly, the National Rifle Association, which responded with a rather snide tweet saying police officers in general, federal officers in particular, shouldn't be asked to be the guinea pigs in evaluating a firearm that nobody's even seen yet, says James Pascoe, executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police. And this may be the only time I agree with anyone in the Fraternal Order of Police, because I don't like unions. I don't like cop unions anymore, but I don't like unions at all. Now, think about this. Smart gun technology. Why? Now they say, well, it's to curb whatever. It's to curb violence. It's to curb violence. It's to curb accidental shootings. It's to keep it so that kids don't grab guns and shoot each other. We had a tragic case here in Chattanooga not too long ago of a child who grabbed a gun and accidentally shot himself, and that's tragic. And yeah, they'll argue that smart gun technology would fix that. And yeah, a smart gun as a consumer technology for people with kids is not a bad thing. I'm not saying smart guns in and of themselves are bad things. Smart guns for stupid people, right? But no, smart guns are not in and of themselves a bad consumer product. It's just that government is forcing it in this artificial way. If it was just Heckler and Koch comes out with a smart gun and you can buy it if you want to, but you don't have to, I'm fine with that. It's a new technology. It's not for me, but certainly for people with kids, it's a good idea. But if everyone is being forced to, in a grandfathered in sort of situation, buy this weapon, no thanks. If you're going to be a firearms owner, you have to buy the special new smart gun. Yeah, right. We'll talk more about that in a little bit here on Hot News Talk Radio and Binary. Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Get us on the TuneIn Radio app if you want to be high-tech. TuneIn Radio on your smartphone. Search for Hot News Talk Radio.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240. Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate move-in. You can enjoy this 2-bedroom split layout, over 1,000 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, an extra large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of their business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown off of Highway 58. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com. That's crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to crosscreekchattanooga.com or call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
MLS 2239. What would you do with all that cash? Listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips here. Home Rate Mortgage. 805-9100. $1,200. That's how much we just put back in a Saudi Daisy family's pocket per month. All they did was pick up the phone. 805-9100. That's 805-9100. Get that quick quote now. 805-9100. HomeRateMortgage.com. Do you want to achieve the American dream in 2016? Listen up, y'all. I'm Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. We just helped a police officer purchase his first home in East Brainerd. Now he's grilling and chilling on his back deck. The American dream. You could achieve it with no money down options. Why wouldn't you call? 805-9100, HomeRateMortgage.com.
Shake, shake, shake it at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. The most delicious and unique milkshakes. How about this for delicious and different? Add freshly cooked bacon to any milkshake.
Is that even legal?
You bet your milkshake and booty it is. Chocolate caramel bacon shake. Coffee caramel shake. All hand blended. Shake, shake, shake it. Down at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Just about any flavor shake that you can imagine. And they are delicious. Get your shake, shake, shake on at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Five Guys Burgers and Fries, located at Hickson at North Point. Gun Barrel at the Walmart Center. Downtown 4th and Broad. And in Cleveland at Keith and Stewart.
Hi, I'm Adam Disbro, the owner and the head surgeon of Cell Surgeon. Broken screen? You need it repaired now. We can do that. We'll have your phone repaired within the hour. No hassle, no mess, no stress. We love fixing cell phones. Your cell phone has become part of your daily activities. You've noticed your cell phone is not charging properly. It could be a charge port issue or your charger. Come in for free. We'll test your phone and your charger. You have an expensive phone. Don't feed it with a cheap charger. A cheap charger can actually damage your device. Our high-quality chargers are affordable. Cell Surgeon, 140 Northgate Mall Drive, right next to Old Chicago Pizza. 423-668-0100. www.thecellsurgeon.com. Please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thecellsurgeon.
Get $10 off a screen repair. Mention Hot News Talk Radio. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out. Cell Surgeon in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
I'm Sabrina with Sabrina Realty Associates. Now is a great time to sell your home. In our area, inventory is at an all-time low, which translates into higher sales prices. Call us today at 423-499-7780 to set up a free consultation and discuss our unique and aggressive marketing programs. We will provide you with a free market analysis to determine the right value of your home. Call us today at 423-499-7780 or visit our website at sabrinarealty.com.
Our house in the middle of our street.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update.
A warehouse fire caused Walker Valley High School and Charleston Elementary Schools to go on lockdown as a precautionary measure this morning at about 8 o'clock a.m. Students were asked to shelter in place only as a precautionary measure as crews were battling a fire at Lonza on Old Lower River Road in Charleston. Some individuals were riding ATVs on Ross Creek Road when they made a grim discovery. The Grundy County Sheriff's Office says that a female body was discovered Sunday at around 12:30 p.m. The TBI has been called in to assist in the investigation. It's currently unknown who the woman was. On Thursday afternoon, a Bradley County inmate was found unconscious inside of his jail cell. Well, now it's been revealed that he died at Erlanger Medical Center on Sunday. His name was Billy Joe Rogers, and the TBI is still investigating the circumstances of this incident. Emergency services on Signal Mountain had to help a man after he fell 30 feet from Signal Mountain Bluff on Saturday night. He suffered only from minor injuries, and he's expected to be okay. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect scattered showers and a few storms to roll through for the afternoon. Highs into the upper 70s. Tonight, showers and thundershowers will move off to the south and east. Lows upper 50s and near 60. For Tuesday, a few lingering clouds, but drier highs near 75 with cooler weather for the rest of the week. Get ready for Riverbend, June 10th through the 18th with discounted Riverbend admission at Kangaroo Express and Circle K locations. Save $15 off the gate price with discounted Riverbend tokens at Food City locations. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward.
On AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
There's a lot of groups that you can't put in a box, and gun owners tend to be one of those groups. You can't put them in a box because you got the guy who owns a handgun just because he does. You know, he owns a handgun because he wants to protect himself. He keeps it next to his bed, and he probably doesn't even really think about it most of the time. He just has one. It's customary. You have a revolver. Maybe it was your grandpa's and it's yours now, and you keep it loaded with 38. You really haven't target shot in a long time. You just keep it in your bedstand because your nightstand because it's what you do. If somebody breaks in, you hear thump of the night, you have it there. It's protection. It's safety. Then you have gun enthusiasts and collectors, you know, the guys who are really into it and know a lot about their different firearms. I'm somewhere in between those two. I really like guns. I think that they are items, right? They are tools. They are not, they have no moral implication in and of themselves. I know a little bit about them. I'm not an expert or anything. I just like guns. I have an interest in them, and I'm not like a super mega gun nut or anything like that. I don't have a safe full of them or anything. I like them, and I'll take one if I can get it or if I can afford it, but I'm not a super mega gun nut or anything like that. But I also am really, really into rights, and rights which you have, and rights which really shouldn't be taken away. And one of those is your right to own a gun, whether you be a liberal or a conservative, Republican, Democrat, libertarian, anarchist, socialist, communist, whatever. It's in the Constitution. You have a Second Amendment right to own a firearm no matter what your political leaning. And that's kind of the point, actually. You have a right to own it no matter who you are. You can be black, white, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, what have you. You can own a firearm. And it's all there, black and white in the Constitution. Actually, it's technically like black and off-white, like parchment color, but, you know, it's all there in the Constitution. You can own a gun. And it's awesome because this puts us all on equal footing. That was the intent. Maybe not all equal footing back then because you had the whole issue with, you know, slavery and all that, but That's over now. We're all on equal footing. It's actually quite egalitarian. We all have an equal right. Now, we don't have equal opportunity, but we do have equal rights. And somehow this really gets under my skin, the whole idea of the smart gun, because like I say, as a consumer product, it's totally fine. If H&K or Colt or Springfield Armory or Glock, or you name the gun company, wants to come out with a smart gun, that's fine. And it's been done before, actually. That's okay. As a consumer product, it's fine. It's a tool, has no moral implication. It is a tool. But as soon as you inject government into the argument and say, well, the government really wants us to produce these, then you start having problems. Because now there's an agenda involved. There's always an agenda with government because government is political. So there's a political agenda involved now in the creation of smart guns. And there can't be any agenda other than control. When you look at it on its face, when you look at it from its motivations, it must be control. Now, you can make arguments that, yeah, probably some senator believes that this is really going to save a life. But really, responsibility and proper education are going to save lives, not a little RFID chip that's going to have a mechanical servo that's going to stop a trigger from firing, or to stop a hammer from firing, or falling on a stop a hammer from falling on a firing pin is what I'm trying to say, or a striker to work, or whatever. It's responsibility is much more important than laws. Like imagine a scenario like this. Suddenly, tomorrow, all the roads have no laws. The roads suddenly have no laws anymore, and cops aren't going to pull you over anymore. I wonder how many deaths would occur. How much increase would we see in the amount of deaths? Now, maybe over a certain amount of time, yeah, but right now, tomorrow, how many deaths would we see? Probably not that many. I wouldn't imagine there'd be a huge increase. When we're faced in a society without laws, or when we're faced with a situation without laws, we tend to sort of make our own, or societally will agree that this is how things should work. For instance, there's no law that says I should hold the door open for someone who's walking behind me. But most people, especially down here, do that. There's no law saying you have to, but a lot of people do it. Just the same thing applies to firearms when you own one. There's not a law that says you have to properly maintain it. There's not a law that says you have to point it in a safe direction, although you could say maybe that's assault, whatever. There's not a law that says you have to make sure your firearm is safe at all times and you keep it away from kids. But most people do that because they're well educated, because they watch videos on YouTube telling them to do that. And seriously, you might laugh at that, but that is generally how people learn things these days. We learn them on the internet. I learned 9 out of 10 things about what I know about guns because I read it online. And that's how most people are these days. We're getting better educated by the internet than we are by what's happening in our classrooms. And that tends to be true 9 times out of 10. And that's fine. That's okay. That's an evolving society. That's evolving populace. And that's perfectly fine. So we have tragedies that happen. Like, again, there was a child who died as a result of a car being left with a gun inside of it and a unattended child inside of it. But I ask you, what's at fault here? Is it the gun or is it the circumstance? It seems to be the circumstance. A child should not be left alone inside of a car for any amount of time. My mom never left me alone inside the car when I was a kid. It didn't happen. Even if she's just running in the bank to make a deposit, it didn't happen. My mom was responsible. And I'm not calling down blame on the head of whoever it was, and I'm not going to name names, whoever it was who left their child inside of a car, because this is a tragedy. A child was lost, and that's awful. And I want to make a political statement out of that. I'm just asking a question. Is it the circumstance at fault, or is it the item? Because the tool is a tool, right? I can hammer somebody to death, or I can build a church. It is what it is. It's a tool. It does what it does. And the intent behind it is entirely in the hands of whoever's holding it, not in the item itself. Banning the item isn't going to solve anything because, as we know, California has very strict gun laws, but you have gang members with automatic AK-47s. Where are they getting those? Probably from Mexico, maybe. I don't know. But that seems to be where a lot of them are being smuggled from. But this has no implication about the item itself. It's about people who are using them. I can own a fully automatic AK-47, and I would never dream of shooting anybody with it unless they broke into my house or were threatening my family or my friends, my boss, my workplace, whatever. I would never imagine using that gun against any human being. And most people wouldn't. It's not the item at fault. And I'm probably preaching to the choir because it's the South, right? Most people would argue for that in the first place. Caller, you're on the air. What's going on? Caller, hello.
Hello, this Dish Network?
No, ma'am, it's not Dish Network. You have the wrong number.
Well, okay then.
Thank you very much. You think you're going to get an argument about gun control, and you get somebody looking for Dish Network. That's cool, though. We actually have a number that's kind of similar. If you squint your eyes real hard, it kind of looks like a Dish Network number. It's not. We don't even have Dish as a subscriber, I don't think. And so that is what it is yet again. So the whole idea about objects somehow having moral implication or objects being evil, it doesn't work. It's not there. It's not how it works. And anyone would tell you that with half a brain, or who doesn't have an agenda, because I can't imagine that these people who work in government, who are congressmen, senators, actually believe that firearms or any other weapon or any other object for that matter has a moral implication or has an agenda. They just are trying to pass their own agenda. And that's all it is to it. My agenda is kind of simple, actually. My agenda is if you want to own a gun, you should be able to own one. That's my agenda. It's easy. You know, if you want to own a smart gun, fine, buy one if they come out with them. That's fine too. But I don't want my tax money being injected into it. Private enterprise should be ruling this. Private enterprise should be driving this. Just like private enterprise has been driving the gun market for the rest of forever. Except maybe not, because war has really been driving the gun market for a long time, and it's actually government that's been injecting itself into the manufacture of a lot of firearms, but we could get into that for a long time. Guns are something that I'm kind of picky about, so we could talk about that for forever. I don't want to drag it on too much, but you get the idea. I want you to be able to buy whatever gun you want. And it seems like people in government, not everybody, but a lot of people in government don't agree with me. So who's right here? Me, who wants you to be left alone to do whatever you want, or a government who wants you to be looked after all the time by a nanny state? I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't want you to be looked after by the state. Maybe you could be looked after by your kids, your parents, whatever, your family, your friends, but not by government, because government tends to kind of mess everything up. Look at roads. Roads are kind of straightforward. Okay, yeah, minutiae, they're complicated, but roads and the construction of them, pretty simple. And yet they keep getting messed up. We can't maintain them. So why should we trust that same government then to handle healthcare, right? Like TennCare is a disaster. It's a mess. The current healthcare situation is a disaster. It's a mess. No matter how much technology we pour into it, how much money we pour into it, it's still going to be a mess every time, because government doesn't want it to be efficient, because if it's not efficient, more money gets poured into it from contractors who have friends in Congress. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. That's how it always will work. It doesn't matter if it's a socialist government, a communist government, capitalist government, so-called. That's how it always works. That's how it's always going to be. And it's something we've lived with for a long, long time. And it's something we're probably going to live with for a long time after that, too. It is what it is. We just have to call it out, because that's what it is. Contractors are going to make this. Someone has buddies with the company that's going to be making it. That's how it is. Dianne Feinstein, for instance, her husband works for a major manufacturer of, I believe it was railroads. And magically, all the railroads in California disappeared except for the ones owned by her husband. Seems kind of fishy, right? And by the way, she's a senator from California. Go figure. It's politics. There's always corruption. There's always people in bed together. It's politics. We all know it. It's just we politely ignore it because it's rude to talk about for some reason. It's ridiculous. Well, Google, Facebook, and Uber, and a few others, are joined together with a new New York City tech industry lobbying group. I don't like lobbyists either, but we'll talk about it. The Verge has this story. A new New York City-based technology advocacy group has launched, and it already has some big players lined up. Tech NYC, co-chaired by venture capitalist Fred Wilson and AOL CEO Tim Armstrong, plans to become a more formal and representative organization for tech companies in the city as it lobbies for industry-friendly policies, like don't tread on us, basically. Stop trying to regulate us. According to the group, it plans to push for policies that create a regulatory environment good for growth of the tech industry while also promoting wider technology access for New Yorkers. The group cites a few recent debates in the city that it could have weighed in on, such as disagreements over how to regulate companies like Uber or Airbnb. How about you don't? Indeed, those two are on a long list of companies on the nonprofit group's roster of members, which also includes Google, Snapchat, and a few others. Here's the thing about Uber and Airbnb, though. Uber and Airbnb, and I'm not advertising for them at all. You can use them or not use them, and I don't really care. But Uber and Airbnb are interesting because Uber has challenged overnight the taxi industry in such a way that it made everyone in the taxi industry mad. I loved it because this is out with the old and with the new, supposedly. Uber is the idea that, you might be familiar, Uber is the idea that you can hire out your car, basically, pick up people, drop them off, and accept money for it. Simple stuff. as a concept, it's really simple, but everyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And there's not any sort of special license. There's not any sort of special token. You don't have to have a special sign on your car. You don't have to have a special car. You have to pass all sorts of different regulations. It's just your car. You drive it. You accept money to drive it. Simple as that. This threatens, of course, the whole concept of the taxi industry, because the taxi industry has been around for a long time. London hates it. New York hates it. Chattanooga didn't like it. Remember, there was that regulation in the Chattanooga City Council talking about regulating Uber. David Tulis of Nooganomics and I were both talking about this on the air not too long ago. Well, actually, it's probably about a year ago now. Time flies. But we were talking about this. We were talking about how the response to Uber should be no response from government. Let it play out. Let it play out in a free market setting. And really, the taxi industry in and of itself is not operating in a purely free market environment because there's so much regulation. You have to have special cars. There's a certain limit on what cars. All these different regulations come into play. It's not free market. And they'll say, well, a free market industry, yada, yada. It's not free market. The taxi industry can't possibly be because there's so much government involvement. And Uber's getting that way because there's a lot of government regulation flying around about Uber. Uber's not perfect. No company is. Google's not perfect. Microsoft's not perfect. Apple's certainly not perfect. No company is. Hot News Talk Radio LLC is not perfect. I'm sure there's something wrong. I don't know. But the whole idea is ridiculous that we should somehow regulate Uber more and then it'll be more profitable. Since when has business ever worked that way? Never. It's like these people just pretend to not know how business works. Kind of like socialists. I don't know how business works. They've never been involved in it. Or if they have been, they were so disenfranchised with it that they want to go the opposite direction. I've been involved with different businesses for a long time. I've been involved with a startup, this one. I've been involved with talking to lots of different people from lots of different businesses. Now, granted, I'm young. I'm not the most experienced guy around the block, but, I know things. And I can tell you that more regulation doesn't really help anybody when it comes to businesses thriving and getting a better product to customers. Case in point, this is tech industry too. Case in point, Amazon was fully prepared, or at least it said it was fully prepared to launch drones by 2015. Delivery drones by 2015. Did that happen? No, it didn't. We didn't have any drones delivering our packages by 2015. Why? Because the FAA stepped in. Because they were worried about drone strikes, not the kind that blow up a small village in Pakistan. No, the kind where a plane hits a drone and it blows up and kills everybody inside. Except there's no documented case of that happening. There was one scare at London Heathrow Airport where a drone purportedly hit a passenger jet. Guess what? It turned out it was a plastic bag. Now, Amazon, I'm sure, to prevent liability and lawsuits out the wazoo, would be fully prepared to implement an air traffic controlling system. But the FAA has to get involved because there's lots of money to be made here. Because you can charge people for licenses to fly these drones commercially. There's money to be made. There's always money to be made. And that's why government does what it does, because it's like a mafia. That's how it is. So that's why Uber and Airbnb are such a threat to, I guess, not really status quo, because it is kind of accepted now, but it's why they were such a threat to the whole idea of regulated environments, because they were thriving without them. And it was threatening the existing business that was being held back by regulation. If there was actual fair competition between the taxi companies and Uber, that'd be a whole nother thing. But there wasn't, because the city of New York was holding it back. It's not the taxi company's fault per se. It is the city of New York's fault. But it was a whole big mess. And now it's the FAA's fault that we don't have drones flying around delivering packages in 30 minutes. Think about this. We're in Chattanooga, right? How far away are we from the Amazon Fulfillment Center? Not very far. I know a lot of people who work here. In fact, people who work here have worked there. Lots of people have worked at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. I know a lot of them. And they have positive and negative things to say about it, but that's how any job is. Think about that. Amazon Fulfillment Center, not that far away. They have a fleet of drones that can be dropping off packages outside your door. Wow. Really? A fleet of drones will be dropping off packages outside your door within 30 minutes. That's what they were promising. 30-minute delivery, thanks to these drones. Think about how this would help businesses too from Amazon. I'm at work here, and I realize I need a bunch of pens, and I need it soon, but I can't run out to the store because I really can't leave the office. All I need to do is open up my phone, search on Amazon for the different pens I need, order 50 of them for $3, have them shipped to my door or the office door in 30 minutes. How cool would that be? And because I don't have time all the time to leave the office, that's an amazing thing. That's like a gift from heaven for me. Now, what if we could do that with different goods? Like, for instance, what if I need coffee? And say Starbucks or a local, hey, Stone Cup here locally, great coffee at Stone Cup. And they're not even paying me to say that. I just say it because I believe it. Great coffee there. What if Stone Cup opens up a drone delivery service and delivers coffee straight to your door for a 30-minute delivery for maybe a little bit extra fee? How cool would that be? Except, oh, wait, there's FAA regulation. You can't do that. The future would be bright if it weren't for so much of this regulation in the way, acting like sunglasses. Thanks a lot, guys. Oh, well. Well, NASA, this is brighter news. NASA, which is the one government entity which I don't mind, NASA is wanting to put a 3D printer in space, and there are 3 companies now which are building it, which I know might be slightly contradictory because we're again talking about government contractors, but for the sake of technology, we'll talk about it. Made in Space is surely working away on Archinaut, according to Fool.com, which may be trying to fool me here. I don't know. Its most recent contract win with NASA that involves building a robotic 3D printer with parts aggregation and assembly capabilities for the International Space Station. The startup is fresh off of its historic achievement in late March of supplying the first permanent 3D printer that's commercially available to the orbiting lab. Now, how cool would that be for those guys in the space station, International Space Station? Lost the name of it. You can 3D print tools even. Say you need an Allen wrench, you can 3D print it, no problem. You really can. If it has a strong enough material, there's a strong enough plastic, you could actually 3D print a Allen wrench or a regular wrench or a screwdriver, flathead, Phillips head, doesn't matter. Anything you want, you can 3D print. How cool would that be? And then when you're done with it, maybe there's a system so that it can be then sort of disassembled and put back into the 3D printer for printing again. How neat would that be? Well, the first one is Project Archinaut, a $20 million contract with NASA late last year for a project officially known as Versatile In-Space Robotic Precision Manufacturing and Assembly System. Wow. Though aptly dubbed Archinaut. The project is part of NASA's Tipping Points program, which funds demonstrations of space technologies on the threshold of offering significant benefits for government and commercial applications. So 3D printing in space is swiftly becoming a reality. And possibly, it's possible, 3D printing might be the main method of manufacture in space because it would be so versatile and it would be so cheap to do. If all you need to do is ship a bunch of different bands of resin up into space, there you go. Now, you do have the issue of the bands of resin possibly melting in the heat or freezing in the cold, becoming brittle, but you know, these are all problems which I'm sure the folks at either NASA or SpaceX or whatever other company, Virgin Galactic, are more than willing to work out for the sake of profitability. It's funny, too, because businesses and government both have sort of the same goal. It's profitability. It's just they gain them in different moral ways, less than moral ways, I guess. But both have the end goal of profit for themselves. Kind of weird how that works out, isn't it? This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, and Colin Cowherd is coming. I almost said Clutch. Colin Cowherd is coming up next. Be sure you listen to Clutch at 6, by the way. Great sports show. Colin Cowherd coming up next here on Hot News Talk Radio.